So I have a theory. My theory is that great guitars are not found, they find you. And recently I was found by another great guitar, and I'm going to tell you the story. Now, for those of you who are looking for a sound playing review of this guitar, I'm going to start off by saying right off the bat, there's going to be no sound clips on this guitar in this video. There'll be more coming later, but for right now, it's just an informational review. So if you're looking for playing, you can search one of the other videos that's available on YouTube. So, what are we talking about here today? Which guitar? Well, we're talking about this guy here. This is a PRS SE model, and it's a Zack Myers model from Shinedown. Now, I'm going to start off by saying that I wasn't looking for another PRS. Definitely not. I already had a 245 American-made, high-quality version. I have my Tremonti guitar, which is an import, which is lower end. I didn't need another guitar. But, you know, I was bored. I was at home, not feeling well, so I was just surfing the internet, window shopping for maybe some used gear. I came across this guy in an ad, a local online ad, and immediately I was like, whoa, hold on a second, what's this? Because I already have a 245, I thought it was a 245 at the beginning when I saw it for the first time, because it's very similar. But then on closer inspection, I noticed that there's a couple of features that are not the same. So the little voice in my head was saying, stand back, close that browser window, you don't need another PRS. You know, I was hearing my wife's voice in my head saying, you already have too many guitars, you don't need another PRS, you know. So, and she's absolutely right, by the way. So there I was driving to this guy's house to check out the guitar, and you know, I wasn't very familiar with the Zack Myers model because I'm not a big Shinedown fan. That doesn't mean I don't like their music, I just don't listen to it very much. So I don't know, you know, what gear he's playing and whatnot. So I wasn't familiar with this model. But then, you know, I started looking online and started doing some research, and I said, okay, what's so special about this guitar? So first of all, you know, when somebody talks about an SE model, you know right away that it's made in Indonesia. It's not made in the US. So you're going to be paying quite a substantially lower ticket price on the article. Now, from my experience, I have to say that PRS is one of those companies that you know that you're going to buy their guitars and it's going to be pretty much ready to go right out of the box. I have rarely come across a guitar from PRS, either an SE model or a USA model, that wasn't very, very well set up. Now, the thing is though, the SE models sometimes have a bad rap. Why? Because they're not made in the USA, they're made in Indonesia. And the reality behind it is that, you know, PRS does not make these guitars. They're made in another factory. It's not the same type of process that PRS will be using for their American-made version. But that doesn't mean that the quality control is not there. From what I understand, these guitars are shipped to the American plant, they're verified, they're put in a box, and then they're shipped out. So I'm assuming that if they don't pass a pretty high-level scrutiny, quality control, they don't get shipped out. At least I hope they don't. Now, so let me continue with my story. I went to this fellow's home to check out this guitar because I did my research online. I looked at some of the features and I was really impressed by what I saw, but I wasn't sure what it would sound like. Now, I rarely will buy a guitar sight unseen. It's happened once or twice and I got very lucky. But usually I like to try out the guitar because there's way too many things that you can hide in terms of defects with a guitar that you're selling with just photos. You can't tell. You'll never be able to tell if the neck is straight. You'll never be able to tell if the truss rod is stripped or if there's cracks in the neck joint, etc., etc. So I went over to this fellow's home and I checked out the guitar. He had a really bad amplifier. I wasn't able to get a really good sound out of it. So I was kind of in the dark in terms of, you know, the quality of the actual sound of the pickups, because the amplifier just didn't cut it. So what I had to do was just trust my ears, play the thing unplugged. The problem with that was that the fellow liked to play in drop D. And the strings that he had installed on this guitar were practically bass strings. They were so thick. The guitar wasn't staying in tune because of it, and he didn't know why. And I told him, I don't think he even realized that it was staying in tune, to be honest with you. And you know, in closer inspection, it was very obvious to me that the strings that he had on the guitar were so thick that they weren't actually even seated properly within the nut. They were actually not in the grooves, because they didn't fit in the grooves. So I kind of avoided doing a face palm in front of him to show my disgust. But I looked at the guitar. The guitar was basically in brand new condition. The fellow told me that he actually was a bass player and he didn't play much guitar, which made sense, and hence the thick strings. You know, there was still the plastic protective coating on the back of the plastic for the access panels. So there was no buckle rash. The guitar was in very good condition. So I haggled with the fellow for a little bit and I tried to bring the price down somewhat, but he wasn't very negotiable. I did get a decent price off the retail price, but you know, the guitar to me was really very interesting. And as I said in one of my other videos, one of the most important things that determines whether you're going to like a guitar is the neck. And that's something that I want to talk about on this guitar. So if the neck is not to your liking, there's nothing you're going to do to change that. And eventually you're going to get rid of your guitar, and that's the end of it. With this guitar, what I was very impressed with was the fact that the guitar neck thickness was very, very chunky in the back. And I already have a PRS SE, sorry, I'm not an SE, I'm getting confused here. I already have a PRS US made 245, which the neck is a little bit chunky, but this version, the SE, Zack Myers, is slightly bulkier. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm just trying to give you a little bit of understanding to what you're dealing with if you haven't ever tried this guitar. It's bulkier, but it's very comfortable. As a matter of fact, for me, it's probably one of the nicest necks that I've played. It reminds me a little bit of a Les Paul neck, but not really. It's actually nicer to play, easier to play. The actual neck plays like butter, and that's one of the things that I really, really enjoy about PRS guitars, are their necks. They're just effortless to play. So let me go into some detail about, you know, what makes this guitar different and why I like it so much. So first of all, the quality of the construction we've already established. PRS has a very, very high quality when it comes to quality control. There was no issues that I can see with this guitar. The neck was very straight. The tuning pegs on this are vintage style, which I actually like. It's the same as what you have on the 245 American version, and I like these pegs. Some people that don't like them, they prefer the metal. I'm very happy with these types of tuning pegs. If you don't like them, you can easily change them out for something else, but I don't really feel that I'd like to do that. I like to maintain the look. Very nice. Obviously the woods on this guitar are you know, a little bit lower end in terms of maybe how they're put together to cut costs. But it's not really something that you're going to notice and say, you know what, I'm getting an inferior guitar. The guitar itself, when you look at the top, for example, you can see that it's nicely flamed, okay? And a lot of the lower end budget guitars will use what they call a photo flame, which means that they'll take some wood, be it maple or some other type of wood, and they'll cover it with a thin veneer of a piece of wood that has a little bit more figure in it, that's nicer to look at. And then they'll stain that, and it'll look like you have a really nice solid piece of wood with some nice flame on it, right? So PRS, if I'm looking at this particular piece of wood, you can see that the edge of the guitar, and I'll move in a little closer to you, the edge of the guitar has what they call, like a stripe around it, basically, right? And sometimes the manufacturers will use plastic. PRS are well known not to do that. What they do is they cover the edge with a strip of plastic, and not, when I say plastic, I mean like tape, and then they finish the guitar, peel off the tape, and you see the wood, okay? So because of that, if you look at the wood, you can see whether or not there are any glue joints, and if it's made of one piece of wood or multiple pieces of wood. In this case, I can see that it is multiple pieces of wood. There's at least 3 pieces of wood in there. But when you look at the top, you'll see that it looks like there's only 2, right? So obviously we know that they're using a veneer to get this nice flame here. Now, that's not a negative thing. It's just, part of the process. The advantage is that we know that the actual cap is a thick piece of maple. It's not a thin piece of maple. And because the actual guitar is chambered, you can see the beautiful F-hole here, I can look inside and I can see exactly how thick that piece of wood is, and it's at least a good 1/4 of an inch, maybe more. So we know that the top is at least a 1/4 of an inch in thickness. So you have a maple top and you have mahogany back. Okay, the neck and the body are both mahogany. So it's the classic combination. Gibson's been using that combination of woods for decades, and to me, it's probably the nicest combination, because the maple gives you the nice high-end clarity, and the mahogany will give you more of that bass frequency or the lower mids, and it'll fill out the sound. Now, the guitar itself is not that heavy. You have to remember that because it's a semi-hollow, this is another feature of this guitar, which is quite different than the 245 that I have, and that's one of the reasons why I bought it. So it's got an F-hole in it, which means that this section of the guitar here is actually hollowed out. The rest of it is not. You can hear the difference, right? So this is the hollow section, and this is solid. So that's what they call a semi-hollow guitar. And what does that do? It gives you the tones of a solid body guitar with a little bit more resonance that you would find in a hollow body guitar. And I already have a Gibson hollow body guitar, and I really like the sound that it gives. It has a lot more of an acoustic flavor to it, which gives you a lot more nuances in the sound, gives you a lot more, harmonically speaking, it's got a little bigger spectrum of sound. Well, this guitar is kind of in between. So it fits really well in between those 2 type of guitars. And I didn't have a guitar like that. So I was actually very, very interested in getting that missing type of guitar, because I find with the semi-acoustic, you do have a lot more sustain because the woods tend to vibrate a little easier. And I noticed that right off the bat with this guitar, compared to my Tremonti model, which is also an import, there's a huge difference in terms of tonality and in terms of sustain. One of the other differences is the thickness of the guitar. Now, this guitar, also being an import, is thicker than my SE. It's basically the same thickness as a standard USA-made PRS guitar. The Tremonti is thinner. Okay, I think they might have changed that later on and made it a little bit thicker, but I think the earlier models of the Tremonti were a little thinner. And just as a side note, I'll eventually do a side-by-side comparison video with all 3 of these PRSs, and I'll tell you exactly what the differences are between them, So for those of you that are looking to buy something and are not sure or maybe not convinced to go with a USA branded model and pay the premium price, you will have some information to back you up in making your decision. So back to this guitar. So the top of the guitar I was like super happy with. I'll show you where they save their costs, okay? Now, PRS guitars are known to have a carved top, very similar to what you would see on Gibson guitars. This guitar doesn't have the same type of carved top. It does have a rounded top, so the top's not flat. It does have a little curve to it, but it's not carved. So that requires a lot less labor and time and basically keeps the costs low, which is not a bad thing. For those of you who really want to have the carved top, you're going to have to buy a USA model, and it's going to cost you between $3,000 and $4,000. If you don't really care about the carved top, and actually it doesn't really make totally not much difference, you can save yourself the money and go with an import, and you have all the nice features without the high price. So the other thing I really liked about this guitar is the fact that it is a semi-cut. So basically it's a single cut. You only have the cut here on the lower side, and the top is basically very similar to a Gibson style guitar. Okay, and I like that. I know that the PRS also have the double cut, and I owned one a while ago, but I've since kind of become a lot more attracted to the single cut models. So that was another big selling point for me. Now, owning an American made PRS, I know that especially on the 245, they have a bridge that is not adjustable. This one, even though it's an import, does have access to individual saddles, and you can see them right here. So basically, you can actually change the intonation for every string independently. On the American-made one, you cannot do that. The actual bridge is set, so you cannot change independent intonation. You can change the bridge as a whole, but it gives you a lot less flexibility. So for me, I find that this bridge is actually superior to the American-made one, which means that you're getting a little bit more quality, believe it or not, on an import. I know, it's hard to believe, right? Okay, the knobs on this guitar are basically Gibson type configuration, which is volume and tone for each pickup. There's no fancy push-pull or anything like that. It's very standard, which I do like actually. You can always change that if you want. You can actually install whatever pickup configuration you like and modify the electronics, but for the time being, I was very pleased with the standard layout. The knobs themselves I found are a little bit strange. They're clear, and some people will say that's cool, that's different. To me, they remind me of stripper heels. When you go to a strip joint, you see the strippers and they have those clear heels. That's what these knobs remind me of. So they're probably going to come off, and I probably put a set of gold type knobs, which are similar to what I have on my the American-made version. Not a big deal. It's just a preference that I have. The switch is a three-way, standard three-way switch. Nothing too crazy to talk about there. I did open up the guitar and looked at the electronics, and I looked at the pots. The pots are full-size pots. They're alpha pots. They're 500K pots. Very standard. Some people prefer the CTS. I don't really feel that there's a huge difference between them. And I think these will last. If eventually they do fail, I'll consider, maybe changing them. I don't know. We'll see. But I think there's not going to be a big issue there. The neck of this guitar the width of the neck is very, very comfortable. As I said, the neck is a little bit more chunky than a standard PRS neck, and that's what I did like about this, because it is different from my 245. Not a huge difference, and not in a bad way. It's not the type of thing where you're thinking, oh my god, this is too much. It's not very comfortable. It is very, very comfortable. The other thing about this neck is that it does have birds. Some of the earlier models of the SEs didn't. Now I think PRS has pretty much decided to go with birds throughout. I rarely see PRSs that don't have birds these days because people do like them. They're not real abalone, but they're not. I've seen. I'm pretty sure they're some sort of plastic. But you know what? It's pretty convincing because I've seen some really bad quality plastic inlays that didn't look real at all. I had to put this side by side with my American made to determine whether or not they were actually real or not. And to be honest with you, they look pretty good. The only difference is that the American made inlays tend to be a little bit, there's more variation in color, a lot more darker sections to the inlays, but very nice anyway. There's no issues with the cut of the inlay, or you don't see a big gap and a bunch of filler that you see in some lower end imports. You do have the side dots on the top side, you don't have them on the bottom side. And here's the other interesting thing about this neck. So it's the same neck joint as the American made. You have the curve and it's set in the body. The neck itself is what they call satin finish. So basically it's not glossy in the back. It's been sanded down, and you do see like a V shape here. I don't know if you can make it out in the reflection of the light, but there's a V shape. So it's been taped up and it's been sanded down, and it's really nice. I like that feel a lot. And I'm reluctant to do it with my other guitars because I like to keep them original to a certain degree, but this one's already been modified really great. Now the other thing about this guitar is the neck. Again, the neck is rosewood, okay, but you'll see in my follow-up video when I compare my three PRSs, the neck on this guitar, the rosewood on this guitar, is not the same type of rosewood that you will find on the Tremonti. I find that the Tremonti neck is very much inferior, and the quality of the wood is better on this one. When I say inferior, don't get me wrong, I don't mean it's inferior as a whole, as a guitar. It's a very good guitar. What I mean is it's inferior to this neck, to this wood that they're using here. So they might have sourced a better quality rosewood. And I really do like to have a nice tight grain on the rosewood, and I do like it to be dark and consistent, and this one really is. The headstock on the guitar is standard. It's not different from any other PRS in terms of shape. The truss rod cover is standard as well, nothing fancy there. You'll notice that on the PRSs, on the SE models, it never says Paul Reed Smith. It just says SE, and it gives you the model number. I guess this is just a way for Paul Reed Smith to distinguish the higher end guitars to the lower end guitars. And if it bothers you and you really want to have Paul Reed Smith on your headstock, you're going to have to dish out for it because they're not going to give it to you for free. That's for sure. Now, overall, I have to rate this guitar for you guys, and I believe, bang for the buck. And you know me already because I've already said it many times. I'm a stickler for a deal, okay? This guitar, brand new in Canada, goes for just under $1,000, okay? Again, I did not pay $1,000 for this guitar. I rarely buy guitars new because I don't like the sticker shock, and you can get amazing guitars for great deals out there if you're patient and you know what you're looking for. So for maybe $500 or $600, if you're lucky, you can buy one of these guitars used, and if it's in good condition as this one is, you're gonna have a great sounding guitar and a great playing guitar. Now, one thing that I do want to mention are the pickups. Now, the pickups on this guitar, PRS doesn't give a lot of information about what type of guitar pickups are used here. All they say is it's a 245 treble and bass pickup. Now, I know that these are not the same pickups that they're putting in their higher end guitar at all. Okay, I played both of them, and they don't sound different. That doesn't mean it doesn't sound good, but it doesn't have that vintage vibe that you're going to get with the American made pickups. Now, I don't like to switch out pickups on the fly without having an opportunity to play the guitar live, because I do really feel that you have to play the guitar live to really understand the nuances of the pickups. When you're playing at low volumes, you don't really get all of the dynamics, the harmonics, and the feel of the guitar in the mix with a band that you're going to get when you're playing it live. So I haven't had the opportunity to play this with the band yet. I'm probably going to do that shortly, and then I'll decide whether or not the pickups stay or go. Whether they stay or go, I'll probably hang on to the pickups and maybe put them into another guitar, because they do sound very good. And at the end of the day, if you don't really like the pickups, you can actually modify them slightly by just changing out the magnets. There's ways and there's information out there that explains how to do that. And sometimes something as simple as a magnet swap will give you a different tone. Now, unfortunately, I don't know what type of magnets are used here. Excuse me. I don't know what type of magnets were used in this guitar, if they were Alnico 4s, 5s, 2s, 3s. I really don't know. If anybody does have that information for me, please put it down in the comments. I would appreciate it, because it's going to be very helpful for me to understand what type of magnets are in these pickups. I suspect that they're probably Alnico 4s or maybe Alnico 5s, because they do have a bigger bass response. They're a little bit more bold in terms of sound, a little bit more modern sounding. But I could be wrong, because there's many ways that you can wind pickups to get a huge variation of tones, and it's very hard to guess. So that's what I have to say about the pickups. The other thing is the back of the guitar is also same quality and same design. You do have the tummy tuck here, and you do have the input jack on the bottom, and it's sort of the what I call the eyeball shape input jack, which is it's okay. They're not bad. The American one has the bulky metal square or rectangular shaped piece that goes in there, which I do prefer. I think it just feels better, but that doesn't mean it's bad. The electronics in this guitar are well put together. The wiring is clean. There's no surprises in there. So overall, this guitar was for me an amazing find, and I'm really happy with it. And I can tell you right off the bat, in terms of quality, blindfolded, if I was playing this and I was playing my American-made version, I would probably have a little bit of a hard time telling them apart in terms of feel, besides the neck. In terms of tone, obviously the pickups are going to come into play, as well as the hollow body aspect of it. So you are going to get a different tone. The sustain is wonderful. The playability is great. The neck is fantastic. It plays like butter. It's unfortunate that the other gentleman was doing everything wrong with this guitar in terms of setup and strings. That's probably why he sold it. But you know what? It turned out to be a great find for me. I basically installed new strings on on this guitar. I have Ernie Ball's hybrid sling strings on this. That's what I prefer to put on all my guitars, and I really do like that aspect of it. The neck is arrow straight, and I actually found it to be a little odd that oftentimes I look at the PRS guitars and their necks are super straight, and you want to have a little bit of relief in there. So what I do is I put on the strings, I leave it for a few days to basically get the guitar to react to the new gauge of strings, because the tension on the neck will be different. And then once that's done, then I go back and look at it and adjust it, set it up, do the intonation properly and everything. But right out of the box, I think this is a great guitar. If you can find one on the used market, definitely worthwhile. $1,000 brand new. I mean, it's not cheap. It's a steep price to pay, and when you're at the $1,000 price range, there is a lot more choice out there. So you want to shop around and see what you want and make sure that you're getting exactly what you need for your money. But I honestly believe that this guitar, if you can buy it used, is a great buy. The actual finish of the guitar, so far as what I can tell, they only have two versions. They have the more classic color here, and they do have a variation on that, but they don't have many colors. It's not like they're offering a palette of colors on these guitars yet. But I do understand that they're very popular, and I understand why they're very popular. And you know, again, the single cut are becoming quite popular, and put that together with, you know, the features that you're getting in this guitar, that's amazing quality for your money. So don't hesitate to pick one up if you find one. And you know, I just want to say thank you again for watching my videos. There'll be a lot more videos coming your way. Please subscribe if you want to hear the review of the 3 PRSs side by side, and I'll go through them all in more detail. I appreciate you sitting through my blah blah and a lot of speaking. I try and give as much information as I can regarding the guitars, and I have to try and do this relatively fast, otherwise the videos will be very long. But if there's something in particular that I left out, please don't hesitate to contact me. Leave your comments below. I'm always more than happy to answer them. And as a matter of fact, I'm gonna be putting up some videos shortly where I actually go in and give some comments or reply to some of the comments that were left for specific videos that I've made in the past. And I'll give you my long-winded answer, because sometimes I don't have the opportunity to answer all of the questions because it does take quite a bit of time. So stay tuned, please subscribe, there'll be more great videos coming your way, and I appreciate your support.